Hey there, it's Simone, and I'm here today to share my experience with the Diamine Inkvent 2023. I want to talk about how I experienced it this year, what I found interesting, the surprises that I encountered, my favorite inks, the ones that I hate, the ones that I want to try again, and then share some conclusions. So, I swatched, opened the whole thing in October of 2023. I opened the package from the bottom, took the whole tray out, cataloged the inks, and now I'm looking for one sheet of paper. Yep, right here. Then I wrote down what the ink name, so I could put them back, what kind of ink they are. Then I found that there were 9 chameleon, 6 shimmer, 1 star bright, 2 scented inks in this calendar that left 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 standard inks. And after I swatched them on these cards, that this is mixed media paper, and on my Tomoe River paper here in my 52 old Tomoe River paper, I put them all back, put the calendar to the side, and when December 1st rolled around, I opened one of the inks every day, just like everyone else. And I inked up a pen and wrote half an A5 page in my ink journal. So that's this. So this is a Rhodia paper pad notebook on rings, and I logged them in here. And then I also made a swatch right here with the ink pen, and then I wrote less than half an A5 page, but I wrote one entry for each one of the days. The ink journal is Cosmo Air Light paper. This is the first time that I'm using Cosmo Air Light paper in this capacity, and so that was a great way to experience it, and I would do this same setup over again. I am really great at setting myself really big expectations, especially when I'm looking forward to something for a very long time. And so opening it up in October when it got to me, seeing them all once, then putting them away and opening them up gave me a bit of security that I didn't have, that I was able to let each ink do its trick on me. So that worked really, really great. So now let me talk about the interesting things that happened to me. I definitely had forgotten quite a bit about each one of the inks after I swatched, but when I actually opened the ink and I had the swatch cards sorted by days, so I would look at the first day just to refresh my memory so I could pick a pen for this ink. I did remember more than I thought, and I especially remembered when I wasn't so sure about an ink. And also when I liked an ink very much from the swatching session. And that was an interesting thing, because what ended up happening most of the time was that when I saw an ink and I was like, oh wow, I remember this ink, this was so lovely, for some reason it turned out to be one that I didn't enjoy in a pen often, not always, but more often than not. And when I had an ink where I was like, oh yeah, I remember this one, I didn't particularly like the swatch, I put it in a pen and it surprised me. That's what happened most of the time. Here is a quick look at all of the different pens that I used. I used a lot of medium and broad nibs, 1.1 stub. I experimented with Pilot parallel pens. I used one extra fine, but I did tend to use more medium and broad nibbed pens because of the fact that there were so many shimmery inks in this calendar. I have posted the photo of each of the entries with the pen and a snippet on how I liked each one on Instagram. So if you're interested in one specific one, check it out. I hope I'm done posting them all. I was not sharing them on the day that it happened because I didn't want to put pressure on myself. I wanted to experience this and enjoy this instead of having a social media pressure on my back. So I deliberately did not keep up with posting on the day. But now I'm super far behind when I'm filming this, so I'm trying to get them all out before this video comes out. But if not, then they will be posted throughout the rest of the year. That's why I'm not going to go through each one of the inks and pen combinations that I had. I did go through, so I inked up a pen every day. And then I also, if I didn't like it, I emptied it out. I have 14 of the 25 pens still inked. The interesting thing is that I still have day 1 inked. Wow. And of course I have more of the inks and pen combinations still inked from day 20 to day 25, just because that's how it worked out. I didn't go and empty them all out yet. Let me talk about the surprises. So I said again, just before, inks that I expected to like, I ended up not liking as much in pens, and vice versa. Inks I knew I wouldn't like and just put into pens because I wanted to play along were so much better in pens. So I expected to like, now I'm showing you Bucks Fizz. I did not end up liking this at all. I actually already gave this ink away. I expected to like, where's that one? Velvet Emerald. I think most of the experiences also depended on the pen that I put them in. So I'm going to talk about this later, but I'm planning on keeping most of the inks to give them another chance in a different pen. So I expected to like this more. I did not. I also swatched Lamy Tourmaline because I felt like this was so close, and I think it is. I think Lamy Tourmaline is just a tiny bit bluer. I expected to like Cashmere Rose more. I put it in the wrong pen, I think. I had hoped, when I swatched this, I thought, oh, Blizzard, that's a nice ink. Nope. And I also expected to like Fireside Snug more than I then did when I put it in a pen. But I also, again, I think because I had double broad, a medium Jinhao that writes like a broad, I'm not counting this, medium, very wet, flowy pens, and then I had this fine nib. And so it worked, but it just didn't wow me. Inks that I liked more than I expected was Fortune's Gold. Not so much on this white paper, but I wrote quite a few thank you notes in December and sent out 2024 stickers. Do I have one? I'm going to show it to you right here. If you're interested in getting that one, please check out my Ko-fi. I'm going to link it in the description box below. And man, this ink, even though it's not gold, This was so lovely. It shaded so nicely, and you can actually see the shading on here. I did not expect to like this as much as I did. Early Dusk. Wow. Masquerade. Did not think I liked this because it's a gold shimmer. I'm not a fan of gold shimmer. Again, I used this in thank you notes, and wow, the shading. I think all the inks that are here are great shaders. This one in a Pilot Parallel, wow. Tinsel, I was not happy with when I swatched it, but in this pen, perfect. And then also Sugar Snap. So that was surprising to me that sometimes the pen that you put in an ink in is just changing your idea of the ink. Another thing that I loved was my Benu Euphorias. So you can see that I still have 3 of them inked. Those were the only ones that I inked. I think I would have enjoyed this more if it had a medium nib. I purchased this with a fine. This is my newest pen acquisition. This is the Benu Euphoria Earl Grey. That is a Goulet exclusive. This is such a lovely, lovely pen. They worked amazingly with shimmers. These two have shimmers. This is Fortune's Gold. This is Sugar Snap. And yeah, so I ended up actually selling one of my Esterbrook STs and bought this with the funds that I made from the Esterbrook ST sale, because while I was using these pens in December, I inked up 3 Benus and only 1 ST, I think. That showed me something. So I'm totally happy with just having 3 Esterbrook STs now and 4 Benu Euphorias. So this is definitely something that I'll keep in mind. Benus, especially in medium and broad with shimmer inks, is just so good. And I said it before, I really liked all the pen and ink combos, and I didn't expect to like the colors in here. Fortune's Gold. Maybe you can see it better here. Fortune's Gold. Look, see the shading? As well as Sugar Snap. Never expected to like these inks as much as I do, and I think it's partly 70% because I put them in these Benus. Because this Inkvent had so many shimmer inks, I used broad nibs for shimmers quite successfully. All of the broad nibs that I put my shimmer inks in worked really well. I also put the shimmers in TWSBI Eco with a medium nib. That worked okay, but it was just a finer line than I expected. I put shimmer in another Benu, my Benu Ambrosia Brown Orchid with a medium nib. That did not work well. And then I also used another new pen that I tacked onto an Amazon order, a Pilot Kakuno with a medium nib. That worked so well as well. So the broad nibs that were not Benus that I used were this, just a regular Jowo nib. And I put Moonbeam in here. I'm in love with that ink now. And I also used a Lamy with a broad nib. Now I swapped out the nib because I need that for a different video. This one is now a 1.1 stub. It also works. I tried it, but oh my gosh, Lamy with a broad nib and shimmer inks. I had so many bad experiences with my Lamy nibs, but this one here now works really well. I don't know why that is. And then a friend sent me Pilot Parallels to try, and I used all not all three, all four. She sent me a 6.0 millimeter, and I decided that's not what I want to use, because I tried this one and it just, nope. This is a little bit too broad, but still a great experience. And it made me reconsider my, well, hatred is a little bit harsh, my not excitement for shimmer inks. I especially loved this 2.4 millimeter pen, and there's so many inks that I want to try in this nib size, that was such a great experience. I'm so glad I used those. I'm so glad she lent them to me. I don't think I would need a 1.5 millimeter because I do have 1.5 millimeter stub nibs. And then I have the 3.8 millimeter. It's okay. Let me show you what that looks like. Interestingly enough, the 3.8 millimeter, so you can write with those like so, but you can also write on this edge right here. It worked really well writing on the edge. I didn't have the same experience with the other pens, and I do not do calligraphy with those. I just write in block lettering. Let me show you. Oh, no, my Rolodex just fell. Look at this. Look at how this looks. I can't get over how much I like this. I used them for letters, and so this is something that I definitely want to explore more in 2024 using Pilot Parallel pens. And so I just loved Glacier in this 2.4 millimeter stub. Writing on the side worked okay, but it felt more scratchy. It was definitely better and wetter with this. You can see how this looks compared to that. So this is definitely my width that I prefer. And I want to show you one thing that I noticed, and that's something that I really, let me see if I can show you. So on day 5, Nightfall, well, barely. There is some, you can see the base color on the top of the letters, and then there's shimmer on the bottom. I also put this ink because I really, really liked it so much in this Pilot Parallel into my Platinum 3776 with a broad nib. And it just looks like someone dumped a ton of shimmer on the paper. I can't really see the dark blue of the ink. It was such a different and unsatisfying experience in this pen that now I'm rethinking so many of these inks that I have swatched that I didn't like. I am definitely going to throw them into my 2024 ink down bucket so that I can actually use them in one of the Pilot Parallels again. So there are definitely some of these inks that I have in here that I do want to keep only because I want to see what they look like in the 2.4 millimeter nib. And especially for these fun experiments, these 12 milliliter bottles are perfect. It's not just a sample and you can't really experiment, but it's also enough that if I love an ink, I can just keep this, and then maybe another ink comes around where I would never ever use a full bottle of, because it's just not, I don't use these inks as much, but this 12 milliliter sample will last me for the uses that I have for them, the use cases that I have for them. Another thing that I realized was that I actually prefer the chameleon inks over the shimmer inks. I loved how, for example, the Moonbeam has, let me see where I wrote that down now. I found a blog where the person inquired with Diamine what shimmer was included in each of these inks, and I'll link that blog post in the description box down below, but I wrote them down here. So I really liked Moonbeam, and it has turquoise and Moonbeam. Wow, now I'm kind of turquoise and pink shimmer. I noticed, let me put down pink. Well, besides the fact that there's a different base color, I'm really not in love with a lot of shimmer that is green. That was just, it looks like these, you know, these flies. And there was just something about the Moonbeam that made it different. And as well, it's not as dark. And if you put it in a wet enough pen and a broad enough pen that you can see the shimmer, the shading as well. So you have shimmer and shading. That's awesome. So I don't have a lot of shimmer on here. It's just green. Same here. It's just greenish. Well, now I see a turquoise, but there is turquoise and green in the Nightfall. And sometimes it just looks like those flies that buzz around and sit on the wall. Let me see if I can find Astral. That was one of those where I was like, oh, yeah, everybody is like so excited about that. And it just also didn't really show a lot of shimmer in this pen, unfortunately. So yes, Chameleon over shimmer, and especially I thought I would really like those silver shimmer inks, but they remind me very much of those high sheening inks where you have so much sheen, in this case silver shimmer, that it just makes the ink look super dull and not at all enjoyable, and I just could not. But this one has silver shimmer as well, but it just flows differently in this pen. So it doesn't dump all the shimmer onto this ink all the time. So that was interesting. My favorite Chameleon ink was Moonbeam. I keep repeating that. It's just so lovely. And my not so favorite shimmers were the green and green golds that just look like a fly. Now, let me show you my favorite inks and the ones that I loved most. I'm gonna just keep this right here. My favorite ink of this whole calendar actually was Glacier. I think it's because I put it in this Pilot Parallel. Every time I used it, it was just, it gave me a spurt of joy. And so, yeah, I loved this ink. I didn't expect to like this at all because of the boring base color. Moonbeam is my favorite Chameleon. I think it's because it's not a gold or silver shimmer. It has this interesting, there's not a lot of shimmer in here. Let me see here. It just has this amazing shading and shimmer going on, and it's not green, it's turquoise and pink. That was so lovely. This one, I think I put in the perfect pen. It is wet enough so that you can see some shading. You can see the chromo shading as well. I put it in a Sailor King of pens, so that was just so lovely. Did not expect to like this as much. So Jacaranda, and then Early Dusk. I put that into a TWSBI Eco with a 1.1 stub, and again, it's not as visible here. Maybe you can see it better here. Can you see the shading? So it seems like every time an ink shaded really nicely, I loved it. And then I think this is because of the pen. I'm using my Christmas present pen, the Pelikan M800 for day 25, Raise a Glass. I I like the purple. I don't have a dark purple like this. And in the pen, the shimmer is well distributed. It doesn't dump on tons of shimmer. It is green and gold shimmer, but it's very well distributed in the writing that I have done so far. I wrote all of the notes for this video in this color, and it's just, it has a little bit of sheen, it has a little bit of shimmer, it's not overpowered, and I still can see the purple. And so yeah, that is still a lovely ink. The inks that I am giving away or actually dumping down the drain is Bucks Fizz. This has already left my house. This was just so disappointing. Don't like it at all. The scented ink, Sweet Dreams, it's super flat. It doesn't shade, doesn't do anything for me. So this is going. Weeping Willow is a chroma shadier, and I know there's so many swamp goblins out there who love these kinds of inks. I don't seem to be one of those. I tried it with a really, really wet pen. Nope, still didn't work. And so I decided I'm just giving up on these inks. So if you're interested in this one, I'll gladly send it your way. And then Cinnabon, I really liked the swatch here. I knew it was going to be wet. And it just, again, I think Diamine just doesn't know how to do scented inks well. They're super wet. There's no shading because there's so much ink dumped on the paper. I put it in an extra fine TWSBI because I was expecting it to misbehave. That wasn't a good choice either. This just looks like poop to me. And so, yeah, nope. Now, the inks that I felt meh about were those that I expected to like, but just probably didn't choose the right pen for them. That was Velvet Emerald. It was Lavender. I thought I was going to like this, but nope. I just don't. It's not a real color to me. It's just a dirty looking thing. So no. Cashmere Rose, I think I put it in the wrong pen, so I definitely am going to keep this and see if it will perform better. Rainbow's End, I expected to like more. I had quite big trouble, and only the third nib that I tried worked, so maybe that's why I felt so meh about it. Astro, it's just, here, you can see this. It's just this shimmer. So much shimmer, and I don't enjoy that kind of stuff. And then the base color, again, it's just black, which I know so many people online I saw and said, wow, this is such a great black and it's so interesting. Yeah, I personally probably would prefer Ferris Wheel Press and Atlas Stationer's Iron Ore. I think that is just a tad bit more interesting than this super shimmer. Inks that I want to try again in the Pilot Parallel is Diamine Sugar Snap. This looks like it could shade really lovely. Tranquility. And that also goes for Rainbow's End, for instance, and the Lavender. I'm gonna keep those and try them in the parallels, but if they don't impress me, then they are gonna go. I want to see how Blizzard looks in the parallel, because if Glacier looks great, Blizzard might too. And then I want to see how Nightfall looks in the 2.4 millimeter parallel, because I had that in the 3.8 and that was just so fat. Inks I can't believe that didn't land with me is Bah Humbug. I think that was also because I put it in a fine nib without my knowing, and I probably should have put it in a broad nib. This is a pink and purple shimmer, I think. Let me check. Purple and pink, yes. And so I feel like I should have liked this more than I did, so I want to try this again. Fireside Snug didn't convince me in the fine, so I want to see how it looks in a broader nib. And then the inks that I can't believe that I liked were Masquerade. It's a gold shimmer, but it just looked so great in the Lamy Broad. Yep, I enjoyed Merry and Bright. Did not expect that to happen. Nobody likes walnut but me, so I want to see if I'm just mistaken, or if you can all send your walnut samples my way. I also didn't expect to enjoy tinsel as much as I did. And I also didn't expect to like Fortune's Gold. So these are all pen inks I want to try again and see how I like them in other pens. And then let's do some kind of conclusion. So let me put a clip in my book so I can actually read or tell you what I liked and didn't like. Where did I put this? This is what I still need. So I think that 12 milliliter samples are really great to experiment with inks. Like I just started doing with the Pilot Parallels. They're enough to use for a while, but they're also not a 30 milliliter ink bottle that with these kinds of experiments, you won't be able to empty for years. And then you're stuck with maybe 2 or 3 colors. But here I can have like 8 colors that I can experiment with these pens and still get enough use out of them, without also feeling like, oh my gosh, if I put it in here, then I need to savor every drop because I can't with some of the samples. I also think that the names of the inks do not make sense. Many of them. I don't know how I would relate them to Christmas or December. Especially, for instance, let's talk about Fortune's Gold. That's the one that I just couldn't vibe with, because Fortune's Gold, the name gold, I would expect a warm color. This is definitely a dupe for Color Traveler Sanuki Urandashi Gold, and I actually really liked that ink. So I would expect, if I heard Fortune's Gold, I would expect a warm color like a Star Spattered Hill or Yoon Don Yu from Wearingool. This is what I expect when I hear the name Fortune's Gold. But instead, we got this. And if you give me this with the name Fortune's Gold, I think I would be able to appreciate this more if you would tell me a story. Like, why is this ink called Fortune's Gold? Why did you put the shimmer in here that you put in? What is the story behind this ink, so I can appreciate it more? That's what I definitely take away from this. I would have loved stories for each one of these colors so that I have a connection to these inks, or you give me the opportunity to make a connection to the ink name, to the color that it is, and why it is named and colored the way that it is. Will I buy this again? I am not 100% sure. I put maybe, because I definitely had fun while I was doing it, but around day 16, I was kind of over it. It felt, not the inking up, I had a good rhythm every day. I didn't post on social media. This was just something that I did for myself. But by day 16, I was like, I wish I was done. I'm okay. I don't have to open day 17 to day 25. And then when day 20 rolled around, I really very much had to resist the urge to just open them all and put them into pens right away. What I did around that day, I pulled out my ink log and I looked at the swatch cards that I had made in October. And then I already picked pens ahead of times, starting on day 20 or maybe even day 19, just to get that urge away that I felt like I'm over. I'm done. I don't need to do this any longer. Maybe for me personally, I would have enjoyed a 12 days of inks more. So that is something that I'm really thinking about, maybe hosting a 12 days of ink swap in my Discord next December. So December of 2024. I'm not sure yet. There's still a lot of time left, but that's something that is ruminating in my head at the moment. I did stick with it. I did not open them ahead of time. It worked out okay, but I definitely was done before the 25 days were over. Was it worth it for me? Let's put the money aspect aside. I did purchase this with affiliate money that I had at Atlas, so it didn't feel like I spent money on it. Would I do this again if I had to spend my own money on it? I'm not 100% sure. Probably not. But was it worth it? Was the experience worth it for me? Yes. Yes, it was worth it for me because I discovered these parallels. I discovered shimmers in these parallels. And Diamine inks, most of the times, let's exclude the scented inks, and also their shimmer inks are all mostly very well behaved inks. And so being forced by the way that I conducted my Inkvent to put all of those shimmery inks, I think 16, into pens made me reconsider my dislike for shimmer inks, and I saw how I would be able to enjoy them more. I probably won't go out and buy bottles of shimmer inks, but I can keep many of these shimmer inks and use them. And as I said, it's only 12 milliliters, so it's not going to stick with me for ages and ages. And that's what made this Inkvent definitely worth it for me, and I'm so excited to use them. So of all of those inks, these ones are the ones that I'm not putting into my ink rotation, my ink down bucket. Every other ink in here I am considering trying again at some other point. And I think that is quite successful. Imagine there's one more, but that's really great. I did not have the same experience in 2021 when I just swatched the inks. There were a lot of sheening inks. I'm really glad there weren't many in this calendar. I think the ratios need to change a bit more so that they include more standard inks. They can just leave out the scented inks. No one really does like them, and the few that does, they have their brands that they go for. And so please, Diamine, don't try to use scented inks again. I hope this was a good conclusion video of the Diamine Inkvent. Thank you so much for sticking with me for this long time. I appreciate you all so much. I think it's the almost last day of December when this airs. So I hope you have a great last day of the year, and I hope your 2024 is going to be amazing. I am definitely looking forward to all the experience that I'm going to get and the pens that I'm going to try. Happy 2024. I'd love to see you again soon. Bye.